Pastime turkeys, our roots at Drury Outdoors. I can't think of a better place to celebrate spring turkey season than in the DoD archives. Like way back, way back. I'm Taylor Drury, and this is DoD TV. This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Scent Crusher. Scent off, game on. 30 years ago, yes 30, Dad and Uncle Terry began their outdoor video venture. That was way before my time. In a time of VHS players and big cameras, they set out to produce the sound of spring and the same sound they still love today. Let's take it away, Drury boys.
Hello, I'm Terry Drury, and welcome to the Sound of Spring. We've assembled a well-versed team of hunters as well as callers. They include the North American champion, as well as a two-time Missouri State champion from Hillsboro, Missouri, Drew Jones. Also with us, we have the Midwest Friction champion and a 15-year veteran of the woods and the calling circuit from Willow Ridge, Missouri, Mr. Keith Wally. Also joining us is a 20-year veteran of the woods who has placed in over 75 contests from Fenton, Missouri, Stevie Stoltz. And we're real proud to have this gentleman with us. He's the two-time Grand National Owl Hooting champion, as well as the Texas State Open champion, a 15-year veteran of the woods from Festus, Missouri, Mr. Jeff Probst. You know, joining us a little bit later on, we're going to have two very good friends of Mark and mine, Mr. Randy Panic from Ludlow, Massachusetts, and Dale Dinker Whippler from right here in Bloomsdale, Missouri. I'm real proud to introduce the next gentleman. He's the two-time World Natural Voice Champion, going for the third time this year, my brother, Mark Drury.
Thanks a lot, Terry. And like I always say, get ready, because we're coming to you with the sound of spring. Whew. If that doesn't sound like an early spring morning, I don't know what does. Excellent examples of early morning tree yelps. Drew and Dinker, I want to know what part of the hunt that the tree yelp plays for each of you.
Well, I myself like to use a tree yelp early in the morning on a gobbler who's still on the roost. I don't want to overcall to that gobbler and hang him up on the roost. I just want to let him know that a hen is in the area.
That's right, Drew. You don't want to call too loud to him. You want to let the gobbler find your location, then let him make the first move. Let him come to you.
I kind of like to look at it as a way to open up a conversation with the gobbler.
Right.
And feel him out, find out how fired up he is,
Right.
and then go from there. We're going to take the next few seconds and talk about contentment type calling, specifically the cluck and purr. Keith and Steve, where's it fit in at?
Mark, I like to give the cluck and purr when a gobbler's within 50 or 60 yards and just out of range, and give it to him to kind of ease his mind and let him know a hen is close, feeding and purring and clucking.
Well, define it for us, Keith. What are you saying to that gobbler when you're giving that cluck and purr?
I'm saying this is a hen turkey, okay? I'm ready. Here I am. This puts the icing on the cake for me.
It's more or less of a feeding call.
Exactly.
It shows that everything's all right. Now, let's give a quick example of it, mouth
Okay.
calls and slate calls. Sounds fantastic. It's interesting to note, though, that turkeys do that nearly 90% of the time that they're on the ground. They're constantly feeding, they're constantly giving that little purr, so I don't think you can really purr too much to a gobbler.
No, and Mark, that's a good point. the turkeys, when they purr and cluck, they'll walk along and they're feeding, and it's a soft call. So it's a call you really don't want to give too much until the gobbler's in close. It's a good contentment call, and it's a good call to lure him in that last 20 yards.
Right, sometimes I'll even do some scratching with
Scratching
it.
in the leaves helps too.
Sound more
I
realistic.
use this call in between my mouth yelping almost constantly.
I do the same thing.
Get it?
The next segment, we're going to be talking about just clucking. We're going to start this segment off with a hunt that Terry and I shared down in the Ozark National Forest of Arkansas. Early season hunt. Terry, tell us a little bit about what happened.
Here's one of the prime examples of how different callers have different styles. Mark, in this particular instance, decided that he was going to call to this bird after he was already in tight on us, and it just so happened the bird got spooked. He didn't like what he had heard or didn't like what he saw, decided to leave, and it then took us about an hour to get him back in.
Very basic mistake. I should have never called when that turkey was that close. After that, Terry did some clucking, got the bird back in, came in displaying and everything, and then I turned the scene over to Terry, to his expert shooting, and what happened? Take it. Randy and I are going to talk just a little bit about yelping, how you can add realism to your yelping and help you produce more gobblers. Randy, would you give us an example of how you try to yelp in the woods? Those are beautiful, beautiful yelps. I notice you add a lot of pleading quality, some extra aggression in there. Why is that, Randy?
I spend a lot of time trying to get realism in my calling, Mark, and it's pretty important to me. I think that's the key, to take that into the woods with you. The realism sometimes will make that difference in harvesting a gobbler.
Especially the aggression that you're putting behind that yelp. You can actually bring a message across to that gobbler that you're trying to work. If you're trying to tell him that you're a receptive hen and you want him where you are, sometimes some soft, seductive yelps don't work. Put some more realism into them, and it can pull that gobbler your way.
If you want something in life, Mark, ask for it, and that's what
right.
we're doing in the woods.
That's exactly right. We've got some interesting pieces on yelping. Let's go to one of them now and notice the aggression these hens put in their yelping. As Terry and Steve mentioned in their interview, Steve opens the conversation with some real soft tree yelping. Once they felt certain that the turkeys were on the ground, they became a lot more aggressive with their yelping.
Let's see. Just wait. There's 2 of them. There's 3 of them. Good shot, buddy.
I really feel that hen yelping is one of the most important definitions in our entire dictionary. What about you, Jeff?
I agree, Mark. You know, the turkey yelping is the backbone of all turkey language. It's their basic way of communication, just like the 3 of us carrying on a conversation out in these woods this morning.
They communicate by yelping all the time.
Absolutely.
What part of the hunt do you feel that it plays, though?
Well, Mark, I yelp probably 90% of the times while I'm calling turkeys, and I feel you can take just about any turkey yelp.
By yelping.
I agree.
I know it sounds like we're really pounding this home, but it is so very important. Learn how to yelp. We're going to get a little bit more aggressive now. We're going to cutting.
Well, to me, cutting is the most excited that a hen can get. She's really at the peak of her mating, and she really desires that gobbler to come in. And I think the problem is a lot of people confuse cutting with cackling, which I feel is highly overrated. I would much rather cut.
Well, give me an example of cackling then. That's cackling. Give me some cutting, Steve. You prefer the cutting. I myself prefer to cut rather than cackle. What about you, Steve?
I prefer the cutting, and I also prefer yelping with the cutting. I think it throws a little bit more excitement to that cutting.
But the main thing I noticed about everybody's examples is there's a lot of aggression there. That's the time, if ever there was a time, to pour that extra bit of aggression on.
Right. You got to pour the cutting on, pour it to him, because the gobbler, he hears that cutting and he knows that hen is ready to be bred, and that's what makes him gobble and makes him respond.
Okay, what time of the day do we use it? When does it best work, Drew?
I have used cutting any time of day. Since I learned how to use it, it has really changed.
And good results, one and all, right? How about you,
It's
Steve?
a good locating call. You can walk out any time in the morning, at noontime, or if you can hunt in the evening in your state. You can cut an hour before dark and get an answer with cutting.
Randy, how much does cutting play a part in your hunting?
It's a very important part to me, Mark, because it's a very excited call, and a lot of times that's just a key that'll spark that gobbler in a late morning hunt. Or when you have a bird hung up, you hit a little cutting to him, a little excited calling like that, and it just might be the convincer.
Exactly. You know, I truly believe that when a gobbler gobbles, he is at his highest level of excitement. I think that when a hen cuts, she is at her highest level of excitement. I have had hens coming in just yelping and clucking and go to that cutting and actually get her fired up and start cutting herself.
Have you ever noticed sometimes, Mark, when you'll have another hen start cutting to your cutting, how you'll hear sometimes 2 or 3 other gobblers in the woods open up that you haven't heard before?
It is a super, super call. Not hard to see what we're trying to portray. We're doing some examples of gobbling. We're going to take a little time to talk about gobbling. Keith, where does it fit into your hunt? Is it safe? Have you used it successfully?
Well, Mark, in the past I have, but nowadays there's so many hunters in the woods, I would stay away from the gobble.
Especially on public ground. Drew, give us an alternative. That when we gobble, we're trying to get the bird that we're working to come over because another gobbler's moved in. Is there anything else we can do besides gobbling?
Well, what also works very well is to do the yelp of a young gobbler, or any subdominant gobbler that's in the area will bring that gobbler in.
Okay, let's hear an example of gobbler yelping. Not a great deal difference from hen yelping, but I noticed you've slowed the pace down,
right,
deepened it up just a little bit to sound like a gobbler. Something else that I've done and had pretty good success with is done an actual gobbler fight. All the excited purring and clucking that gobblers do when they get in and they start twisting up.
Right.
Let's give them an example of that.
I think I'm gonna need a pair of those glasses this spring. Those things are epic. Don't forget to subscribe to our official channel, the one you're watching right now, and let us know your plans for turkey season. Personally, I cannot wait. Thanks for watching this throwback edition of DoD TV, and we hope to see you again. This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Cabela's. It's in your nature.